Let's talk about the elephant in the room. Let's get it out on the open. Motorcycles can be a little scary. They're fast, they're loud, and without the proper training can result in a lifetime chaos and destruction. Okay, that's a little extreme, but there's still so much stigma around bikes that can negatively impact your perspective as a new rider. You probably had so many people telling you how they know their uncle's cousin's dad's brother who lost a limb and leg and arm and ultimately became a paraplegic. So today we're gonna talk about 7 common motorcycle fears you shouldn't worry about. I will walk you through the necessary skills, attitude, and risk management techniques that will allow you to circumvent your motorcycling fears and grow as a rider. Today's video is sponsored by our friends at Cardo. Let's get into it. The first fear that many new riders have is riding in heavy traffic. While you may discuss safe riding techniques during your rider safety course, you will not get any first-hand experience riding amongst other cars until you're out on your own, at least here in America. Euro boys sound off about how you do your driving tests in traffic and all that. I know, I get it. Riding in traffic definitely requires skill, perception, and caution. It is not something you should be afraid of, as fear will cause a preoccupation and a lack of focus, which will diminish your ability to be predictive and reactive. One of the first techniques you should master when riding in traffic is to be cognizant of your lane position. Ride in the portion of the lane that leaves you most visible to other vehicles on the road and out of blind spots. You always need to be highly perceptive of other cars on the road. Experienced riders will be able to interpret the behavior of cars and anticipate their movements. This can relate to driver habits at intersections, lane changes, or traffic stops. The more effectively you can predict how a car is going to approach a situation on the road, you will be better suited to avoid potential hazards and be safely on your way. Motorcyclists must ride incredibly defensively and do the thinking for not just themselves, but for all the distracted four-wheel drivers out there too. It's also good to have an escape plan while riding to anticipate a path that will allow you to avoid any obstacles or collisions should a car swerve into your lane without seeing you, pull out on your path without turning, or avoid a halting collision between other vehicles ahead of you. While motorcycles offer less protection in terms of walls, airbags, or seatbelts, they're also highly advantaged in their ability to accelerate and stop quickly. So with the right training, techniques, and perception, a motorcyclist should be able to ride safely in heavy traffic and avoid many potential hazards. The biggest tip I can give you too is if you're stuck in heavy traffic, lane split, filter, and get out of there. Create some space cushion. You'll be fine. A new rider may also be afraid of riding a motorcycle at higher speeds. I remember when I was starting out, I had to really acclimate to riding at 40, 50, 60, 70, and eventually 211 miles per hour on my H2. High-speed riding is easier in some ways and more challenging in others. Compared to slow-speed maneuvering, which requires a lot of throttle control as you make tight turns, dragging the rear brake, shifting your weight off the side of the bike, and clutch control, high-speed riding seems relatively straightforward. A motorcycle at speed does a really good job at keeping itself upright without any need for the rider to balance or finesse the controls. High-speed riding becomes more challenging when emergency stops and sharp turns require a quicker reaction time and better control over your brakes. When it comes to motorcycling, you gotta remember the mantra, slow is smooth and smooth is fast. To be good at high-speed riding, you must be very smooth at using your motorcycle's controls. Like many aspects of motorcycling, the best way to become a faster rider is to become a more skilled rider. You have to ease into higher speed situations, practicing on lower speed surface roads as you become more comfortable with the machine and navigating various traffic situations. As you become more equipped and more confident, begin tackling roads where vehicles move a little more quickly, where you'll need to maintain a higher speed in order to ride safely. When riding faster, always be sure to maintain ample following distance behind other vehicles and be mindful of your entry speed when approaching corners. Be mindful of weather and road conditions as water and debris can impede your traction. You gotta understand there's a time and place for high-speed riding and know when it's best to take it easy to avoid a crash. The more experienced you become as a rider, the more natural high-speed riding will feel. So maintain your focus and composure and build up your skills over time. A really great way to do this is to pick an on-ramp that has a quick off-ramp. You get up to speed, cruise in the lane, and then slowly get off again. As you do that over and over again, the speed's gonna feel more natural. Another thing to think about is the fact that when you're all riding at high speeds all in the same direction, there's less chance for calamity. Although you're all going at a higher speed on the highway, there's no intersections. There's really just managing people coming into your lane and coming out of your lane. Another fear motorcyclists have is the fear of getting a flat tire. Getting a flat tire on any vehicle is never fun, whether it be in a car or on a motorcycle, but it can be way more unnerving on a motorcycle. Luckily, getting a flat tire on a motorcycle doesn't have to be as catastrophic as you think. While we often talk about how important motorcycle tires are, being the only contact patch between you and the road, directly relating to your control and stability, motorcycle tires that are properly inflated and inspected for wear have a very slim chance of an immediate catastrophic blowout while riding. In fact, it's never happened to me in the thousands and thousands of miles that I have under my belt. I've gotten plenty of flats, but I've never had a tire just blow out while I'm riding. If that were to happen, your chances of losing control and potentially crashing obviously are a lot higher. But the far more common cause of a flat tire on your motorcycle comes from picking up a sharp object like a nail or a screw. When this happens, your tire is going to lose air gradually. Even if your tire loses a majority of its pressure within just a few minutes, you will be able to immediately detect a very big difference in handling. It's going to be a wobble, a lack of input response, and an indisputable flat tire kind of flapping sound that's going to make it all pretty loud and clear that you should pull over immediately. Like I said, it will be very obvious when you have a flat tire, and it shouldn't be as severe as an outright immediate loss of control, which you may be fearful of. Once your flat's diagnosed, you have to leverage your options. It's never a bad idea to keep a tire plug kit and a small inflator on your bike when you ride, especially if you're going to go on longer rides that take you further away from your garage. Tire plugs are a super easy way to repair a tubeless tire and get you back on the road. Plugs are technically considered to be a temporary measure, but it's not unheard of for people to leave a tire plugged in for the remainder of its lifespan. That is something you will have to determine for yourself. Plugs can fail and cause your tire to go flat again, or they can last another couple thousand miles without issue. But regardless of your long-term decision, a plug will without a doubt allow you to get home safely and avoid the fees of getting your bike towed. Tubed tires are more commonly found in dirt bikes or some less expensive adventure bikes. They have some advantages for off-road riding, where you can allow for a lower PSI that a tubeless tire can run safely. If you were to pick up a nail or screw, the tire itself can be easily reused and only the tube's going to need to be replaced. But the biggest downfall of a tube tire is the fact that they cannot be plugged in an emergency. There's really no easy way to get back on the road if you get a flat on a tube tire, as the tire itself will need to be removed while the tube is repaired or replaced. Meaning if you catch a nail in a motorcycle with a tube tire, your options are a tow or roadside repair replacement, which is near impossible unless your bike has a center stand or you carry an incredibly equipped toolkit including tire spoons. All of that being said, a flat tire on a motorcycle can be a minor inconvenience or a total headache, but regardless, it's not something you should worry yourself over. As long as you routinely check your tire for signs of wear, age, or damage, you shouldn't be subjected to a crash-inducing blowout. But if you're riding around on super old tires that are showing their cords and you're running them at 12 PSI and they're tubed, yeah, they might debead and blow up. But I think you're better than that. In a world where you can 3D print a cheeseburger, learn to play classical piano through sleep hypnosis, and teleport to the other side of the world with a tiny metal tube, why are you not using a Cardo system in your helmet? Okay, some of that tech might not exist yet, but Cardos certainly do. And a Cardo system will take your riding experience from mid to truly S-tier goated. Here at Yami Noob, we've worked with Cardo in varying capacity for years, and there is always a Cardo on my helmet. Their Bluetooth communicator system allows you to chat with other riders, stream media from your phone, or listen to turn-by-turn directions. The Cardo PackTalk Edge is their premier unit that allows you to connect up to 15 riders in just seconds, seamlessly connecting with any other communicator brand on the market. It's got JBL audio to ensure crystal clear sound, and it sounds amazing. It's got the air mount system. You can quickly remove the magnetic unit from your helmet and take it with you for safekeeping. Now, because you're a loyal Yami Noob viewer, Cardo is giving you 10% off if you use the code YNCardo, so hit the link down below in the description box and use the code YNCardo to get 10% off of any unit from Cardo. Supporting our channel sponsors does a lot to keep bringing you awesome motorcycle content, so help us help you get the con system you deserve. Thanks so much for the support, Cardo. Now let's get back to the show. Many riders fear of riding in bad weather, but really, riding in a torrential rainstorm is just kind of a rite of passage as a motorcyclist. Consider it a motorcycle baptism. Fun story for you, I actually started riding back in 2015, and the first 4 weeks that I rode, it was the wettest it had ever been in North Texas, and it rained every single day. So I started riding motorcycles in the rain for the first 4 weeks of my life. Motorcyclists fear riding in bad weather for multiple reasons, whether it be because of an increased difficulty in controlling their own machine, a lack of visibility to other drivers, or just pure discomfort. Riding in wet weather conditions does require quite a bit more caution, as aggressive throttle or brake inputs can result in a loss of traction in the wet, but it is nowhere near as challenging as you might think it be. Modern motorcycle tires are designed to disperse water and maintain traction on wet surfaces. Of course, you have to be wary of aggressive inputs, especially in areas of greater water accumulation, but with a steady and controlled throttle and brake inputs, you should have no issues safely riding in the rain. There's two really important factors to think about. You want to minimize the amount of lean angle, because excessive lean in wet weather can cause a sudden loss of traction, and you want to be smooth on the gas when you get back on it to accelerate out of corners, because you can easily spin the rear tires. You can actually brake pretty heavily in the wet and still have grip. As an aside, I tested the Bridgestone S22 tire in the wet in Jerez, and I was able to drag a knee on a BMW S1000RR in the wet with those tires. And that's just a regular street tire. Many new motorcycles also have variable power modes that automatically restrict your throttle's input to prevent a loss of traction in wet weathers. If the area you're riding in is prone to unforeseen weather changes, it is worth investing in some waterproof rain gear to keep with you on longer rides. Rain gear can serve two functions. Of course, it's going to help keep you dry, but it also comes with lots of high visibility material to help other motorists see you in the dark of a rainstorm. If you ever feel like the weather is just too aggressive to keep trucking on, whether it be due to issues in traction or visibility, just pull over and just wait it out. It's also important to plan ahead for cold weather. In many parts of the riding season, early spring or late fall, it can be beautiful in midday and frigidly cold in the mornings or evening. Riding in the cold can be more dangerous than riding in the rain. Cold weather and cold roads do impede motorcycle traction, but it's also really hard on your body. My rule of thumb is I either ride in the cold or in the wet. I do not like riding in cold and wet. That's just miserable. Your hands and feet can lose their ability to effectively use the controls, and your body can become easily fatigued. So plan accordingly for your ride and make sure you have temperature appropriate riding gear and recognize when it's just too cold to ride entirely. All right, one of the greatest motorcycle fears for motorcyclists of all ages and experience levels is the fear of being invisible to cars. And while this fear is incredibly justified, its impact is diminished as your skill and confidence grow as a rider. This fear can be mitigated through technique, much of which I previously iterated while in the discussing riding in traffic video. The importance of lane positioning, your ability to predict the behavior of other drivers, and having an appropriate escape path. But that's only half the story. You must be predictable in yourself and your behavior. And while motorcycles are indisputably the superior motor vehicles on the road, we're not exempt from bearing equal responsibility for our actions. I've seen so many videos on TikTok and Instagram where people go out there and they crash into cars and they say, "Bro, you didn't see me." My guy, you have to be responsible for your actions. With the fear of invisibility in mind, there are some ways in which you can improve your visibility and increase the likelihood that a car will see you on the road. Again, lane position is crucial, but can also be beneficial to wear reflective gear. You don't need to go full ADV dad banana mode, but by purchasing a high quality motorcycle jacket with included reflective logos, materials, or piping, you can increase your visibility without looking like a dork. It's also important to make sure that your motorcycle lighting is functional and of high quality. Replace those cheap Temu blinkers with some high quality aftermarket LED ones. Swap out your low output halogen headlight bulb for a bright LED. Be predictable in your actions and cognizant of potential high accident areas like intersections. One of the greatest ways to mitigate risk for a fatal motorcycle accident is by avoiding riding at night when possible. Avoiding riding after drinking alcohol and wearing proper gear at all times. While cars are one of the greatest threats to motorcyclists, the rider bears much of the responsibility for avoiding accidents. The most common situation for motorcyclists to go down is a single vehicle accident on a twisty road. But remember, for as visible as you make yourself, always act as if you are invisible to other drivers, and you're gonna have better outcomes. Many new riders fear stalling their motorcycle or having a poor understanding of their motorcycle's gearbox and downshifting and all that sort of things. A motorcycle can stall when it does not receive enough throttle input as the clutch lever is released. This will cause the motorcycle to shut off completely, which can put you in an unsafe position in certain situations, like leaving a stoplight. Luckily, it is really easy to practice using your clutch and engaging the motorcycle's friction zone, the area where the clutch first starts to release, allowing power to go to the rear wheel while not being fully disengaged. The friction zone is used when accelerating from a stop and practicing low-speed maneuvers. You can practice finding this friction zone by sitting on your bike in a parking lot while it is in gear and slowly release your clutch until you start to feel your bike pull slowly forward. Practice moving your clutch in and out until that position of the clutch lever feels instinctual and second nature. Then begin adding a small amount of throttle input as the clutch is released and have a bike gradually begin moving forward. Experiment with slipping the clutch and seeing the way in which you can modulate the amount of power going to the rear wheel during slowed speeds by engaging and disengaging the clutch. As you become comfortable with this and start traveling at higher speeds, you'll need to familiarize yourself with your bike's power delivery and its gearbox. Depending on the gearing and overall engine architecture, your bike may make less power or torque at a higher or lower in the rev range. Through time, experimentation, and awareness, you're going to start to realize where in the rev range your bike makes appropriate power for certain situations. And as a result, you're going to be able to know what gears you should be in optimally for what speed. With the influx of torquey parallel twin engines, motorcycles are more forgiving than ever, making usable, predictable power in many varying parts of the rev range, which allows you to use the gearbox more freely as you ride. This is going to be unique to each motorcycle, but something you will instinctually begin to pick up on as you continue riding and develop a more intimate knowledge of your bike. All right, the last one we need to talk about today is the fear of dropping your bike. Look, I drop a bike probably once a year, moving it around in my garage or doing something dumb. Bike drops just happen. Most riders will end up with their bike tipped over on its side at one time or another, and it usually is a result of some innocuous low-speed maneuver or an innocent parking lot tip over. And while this is something most riders fear, in most cases, the only thing to suffer damage will be your ego. A motorcycle tipped over at a standstill or a very low speed may get some scrapes or dents, but there will more often be nothing more serious damage than any integral components. By buying a used or less expensive bike as your first motorcycle or installing some crash protection like frame sliders or case savers, you can further prevent any real damage. Aside from outfitting your bike with pertinent crash protection, you can oftentimes prepare for a drop motorcycle by learning the proper technique to pick it back up. Oftentimes, if you have a smaller bike, your adrenaline will be pumping so hard you can lift the bike back up with zero technique. But for heavier bikes, smaller riders, or off-road situations where you're going to need to pick up your bike 20 times in one day or at a weird hill or an angle, knowing how to properly lift a motorcycle will pay dividends. With your bike on its side, you need to squat down with the lower back against the seat. With one hand, grab your handlebar grip closest to you, and the other hand, grab a luggage rack, subframe, or whatever you can get a good grip on, then walk backwards, pushing the bike back up using the strength in your legs, not your back or arms. Once it's upright, put your side stand back down. This can even be practiced by gently leaning your bike down on its side onto a rug in your garage or a patch of grass. Once you've got the technique mastered to pick your bike back up, you're going to be significantly less fearful of the chance it may eventually fall over. We made a whole video dedicated on how to pick up your bike and all the techniques, so go and check that out too. Thanks for making it to the end of the video. Have you managed to face your fears, find your motorcycle zen, and are you confident you are going to conquer the road ahead? Be sure to subscribe if you like the content, and I'm going to catch you guys on the next one. Fact: the average cloud weighs over 1 million pounds. How does it stay up there? Goodbye.
Oh, I love being here inside of the warm embryonic fluid of Valentino Rossi. Me and him just sharing foods together. Maybe he's gonna eat some pizza or some pasta here in the hills of Tavullia. But you know where else it's nice and warm and cozy is this next episode of Yami Noob. You can click on right over here. I'd love for you to watch it. But anyways, I'm gonna stay here hanging out. Me and him might go onto the track later, but I'll catch you guys later.